For more than 35 years, Allan Kozinn wrote about music for the New York Times. He is not someone who takes his music lightly, and his new project reflects the seriousness of his approach. He is out now with the first of a projected 3-volume, maybe more, work on Paul McCartney after the breakup of the Beatles. He's with us here on 207 to talk about it. Thanks for coming in. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
We should mention that the title of this new book is The McCartney Legacy, 1969 to 1973. So it starts in the final chapters of the run of the Beatles and the breakup of the band on really every level, personally, legally, financially, was a messy one, wasn't it?
It was a mess. They were fighting about who was managing them. They were fighting about the fact that once John decided that he wanted to leave the Beatles and that there were no Beatles anymore, which they were told to keep quiet for a while because there were some new contracts being signed. But all of the Beatles' money, including for their solo work, went into Apple. And so for Paul to get money to pay his band Wings, for instance, he needed to dissolve the Beatles partnership, and the others weren't willing. So
the ugliness of the split really affected Paul in a bad way. In the early 70s, he's drinking a lot, he's depressed, just a really dark time for him, wasn't it? For a guy whom we think of as having such a sunny, upbeat personality, it's particularly striking.
That's true. I mean, but consider that his entire adult life up to that point was being in the Beatles. And suddenly he felt as if he was out of a job. And it might, looking at it as an outside observer, we might think, oh, well, he's a great musician, great singer, great songwriter. He can just pick up and do his thing. But he needed to be persuaded by Linda, really, that this was going to be possible. He was just so depressed.
There's a striking picture that came to my mind as I was looking through the book, and it's from early 1972 when Paul goes out and performs for the first time in several years. And it's what was called the University Tour. It's Paul and Linda, very small band. They are literally in a VW bus and a rental truck traveling around playing colleges and universities in Britain. It's just almost impossible to imagine such a low-key kind of tour.
Right. I mean, they just wanted to show up and knock on the university events office door and say, we have Paul McCartney here. You mind if we do a concert, And they wanted it to be completely impromptu, unannounced. And actually, Paul had that idea at the end of the Beatles. He tried to persuade John and the others that this is what they should do. Just turn up places like a little bar somewhere and play. And John's response was, "You're daft."
You interviewed Paul McCartney on several occasions when you were writing about music and culture for the New York Times. Right. When you started this project and you reached out to him and said you wanted to talk to him, what was the response?
Basically, there was no response. But we know that he doesn't like, he's fine talking to reporters. He's not that interested in talking to biographers. What we found, however, was that, we would interview everybody around him, producers, engineers, technical people, and a lot of them went to Paul to see if it was okay to talk to us, and he said, yeah, fine. So we were happy that he didn't do anything to stand in our way, but he didn't want to participate, and that's okay.
You obviously knew an enormous amount about Paul McCartney before you even wrote the first sentence of this book. But in writing and researching the book, what did you learn that kind of surprised you, that made you see him and perhaps his music in a new light?
Well, a couple of things. One is that it's very difficult to separate his life and what he's going through at any particular time, or even what he's reading or seeing or hearing, from the music that he's writing. He's almost like sort of a human vacuum cleaner. It all goes in there, and then it might come out immediately. It might come out in 10 years. I mean, there are things on his very first album that were ideas he had since the late 50s when he first started writing songs. So, it could be a newspaper headline, it could be anything, and it's not always clear when you just listen to the song. So I think that people reading the book will be able to sort of piece things together as we did when they see what the influence was and how it came out in the song.
The name of the book, The McCartney Legacy, Volume 1, written by Allan Kozinn and Adrian Sinclair, whom I forgot to mention. It is a collaboration. Allan, thanks for coming in.
Thank
Good to have
you.
you here. We appreciate it. If you'd like more information on the book, on the authors, you'll find it in the 207 section of our website and app. Stick around, back with more of 207 right after this.